What's up, everybody? This video is probably going to be the longest video that I have ever uploaded. Not saying that that's a whole lot, but this is very detailed. I wanted to be as detailed as possible with how to complete the wiring conversion for the vehicle. So this is probably the most involved video that you're more than likely going to see me do, unless I do another project where I'm doing a wiring conversion. I'll do the details of that as well, because this is usually the hardest part for a lot of people in a swap. So I want to provide as much information as I can. I want to emphasize, though, that this is not a DIY. Take what I do at your own risk. If you do it to your own vehicle, I'm not responsible for anything that you do to your own vehicle. But this video is full of a lot of useful information that I think that would help the community a great deal. So hope you enjoy the video. There's quite a few mistakes that I made while I was doing this, and I've included some of them in the video. But for the most part, I'm going to try and break down exactly how I did the wiring. What I first started out doing is stripping both of the wiring harnesses of all the electrical tape and cloth fabric coverings and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to include a picture of a screenshot that I took off of Audi Zine forums. It shows all the wiring that is standard for most of these swaps. When I first did my first swap, I actually pinned out every connection on both ECUs and had to figure all this stuff out myself. But there's been so many people that have done this. There's actually threads on forums on how to do this. So I'm just going to include a screenshot of some of the wiring that I found off of audizine.com. I'll include a link to the forum in the description. It's not my work, so I don't want to take credit for it. I just want to share where I got the information from. But I've gone through this wiring diagram, or the wiring that they recommend, and it all pans out correct. So I'm going to post that into the video. I'll actually have it set up to where it sits for a couple seconds so that you can pause and take screenshots of it if you need to. But like I say, I'll post a link to the forum in the description. Other than that, I'm going to show you how I go about doing this. It's going to be some time lapse, but when I start getting into the actual connections of the wires, I'm going to show you how I go about removing the pins from the ECU connectors, how I go about knowing what wire goes to where, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm really going to try and get as detailed as I possibly can with the wiring. I haven't been real detailed with the engine because, I mean, it's been covered by hundreds of thousands of people, but the wiring is a little bit more involved. It's not that bad. A lot of people get freaked out by the wiring. I can tell you from firsthand experience, it is not that bad. So we'll cross that bridge while we get through this video, but hopefully this gives you the information that you need to get your if you're doing this project, to get your vehicle wired up and ready to go. Okay guys, so I removed coil packs. I'm going to do that mod later. I'm not going to do it right off the bat. So what I just did was I just removed the green and red wire that is a power supply for the coil packs, and it was in that pin right there. And when I tried to pop it open, I actually broke the clip. Kind of sucks, but I don't know if you can see, but on this right here, that little white piece pops out just a little bit. You can see it's recessed on that side. So it pops out just a little bit, and then that lets you get the pins out. So in the way that I do these pins is I'm using an old staple from a staple gun. and you stick it down. If you look on here, you'll see where the pin goes in. Well, if I can get it to focus. You'll see where the pin goes in, and then you'll also see a hole on top and bottom. So what I do is I stick this clip in like so, and that will actually compress the two locks that are on the wire, and that allows you to pop the wire out. So I'll show you what the locks look like. So this is the wire I just removed from that black connector. And if I can get it to focus, you can see that little tang sticking out right there on both sides. That's what I'm compressing with that staple. So you can see the little tang sticking out. And that's what it's compressing. But that's basically what I'm going to do for the individual wires on the harness. Is I'm going to pop out the individual wires on these connectors, and then pop the wires from that wiring harness into this wiring connector, and use what necessary wires are needed and what connectors are needed. But that's how you remove the pins out of the black connector, at least. The brown connector is going to be the same way. You're going to have to pop that white piece out about 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch, and then put your staple in there and pop those out. You can use a really small Allen wrench. I tried to use the smallest Allen wrench in my set, and it was too big. All right, so I'm trying to pull this wire right here out. This is the red and green for the coil packs, just like the ones that I removed out of the wiring harness over there. So we're just going to push in on the wire towards the connector, push down on this. Well, it's going to make me a freaking liar now. All right, now it should come right out. See? It's a different style pin. So the pin is a little bit different on this one. You can see how it's a full square. And the pin on the wire that I'm trying to put into the connector does not look like that. It is this style. And it doesn't want to hold it in. So you can see the tangs are in different locations. So even if I was able to get that wire to sit in there, it's going to push down whenever I try to, because if I set them level, you can see the tangs are in a different location. Next wire we have is going to be green and yellow. And our green and yellow on this one, which I don't want you to think that you just match up wire colors, because that is not how this works. I just happen to know that the red and green, the green and yellow are the same wires, and I believe the red and blue are the same wires for both harnesses. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's correct. Okay, so apparently this is going to be real choppy because my printer has run out of ink, and I'm not going to the store because I'm sick. Don't want to get anybody else sick, so I'll have to wait until my wife gets home, see if I can get her to go to the store and get some printer paper so I can print out my freaking wiring. Because I'm going to have to keep stopping it and looking at my phone for the screenshot that I've got. Because I haven't, like I say, I can't print it out. So, but I was correct. The green and yellow and the green and yellow are the exact same wires. So the green and yellow from the brown connector on the B6 chassis connector, and the orange connector on the C5 A6 connector are basically going to have the same wires in them. The red and blue, I was incorrect on that. The red and blue is replaced by the black and blue, and that's your injector wiring. So we're going to pop the green one out. Like I say, you got to push in on the wire, and then push in on that, and then the wire should come right out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. There we go. Now it should come out. All right, there we go. So that one came out. That one came out of pin number 8. The A6 has 5 connectors on the firewall connections, and the A4 only has 4. So it comes with an orange one and a brown one. So I'm going to move my wires out of the orange one and consolidate them into the brown one, because when I get done, I'm not even going to have this orange connector at all. So just wanted to clarify what I'm going to do. I do know that this brown will plug into the A6 or to the A4 body. I've already checked it. I can't verify that it'll make good contact, but I know that it'll plug in. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, guys, so far I've repurposed or reorganized where the wires were in this brown connector, the original connector off the C5. It is not the connector off the A4. It's over here. It's because the pins are different. These 2 wires, they're connectors that slide into here are too big. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some of these wires that are left in this orange connector and repurpose them for those wires. If those wires go straight to the ECU, that's what I'll do. I'll just change them out from the connector all the way to the ECU connector. If they go into somewhere else, I'll just bridge them in somewhere in the harness. Hopefully they both go to the ECU. But I've got everything on the black connector and everything on the brown connector should be correct, except for one wire on the black connector, which is this blue and red wire in pin 8. I got to move it over to the red connector. But I believe I've got 2 out of the 4 connectors done. Like I say, I need to replace the wires that are going from the ECU harness up to the connector. Black and red wire goes down into the harness, so I'm gonna actually have to splice that wire. The green and black looks like it runs to the ECU harness. Let me follow it and make sure. So yeah, the green and black is gonna go straight into the ECU harness. So I'm going to pull it out of the connector in here. I also have the red and blue wire that is coming from the ECU harness in this same harness. So I'm going to pull this harness apart and pull those wires out and get these connectors all mocked up. I apologize for how bad I sound right now. I don't feel bad, but I can't freaking breathe out of my nose. So then I'm going to pop this connector off. This should just slide straight out. Just get you a little pry tool in between the purple part and the black part and pry it back, and it'll pop out, and then you just slide the whole thing all the way out. Now your connectors will slide out. All right. If you have all the fabric tape off of it, like I didn't, that'll lay out of the way. So now what we can do is we can get down to the wires that we want to replace. So the one wire that I know I can do on this one is the green and black. So there we go, green and black. There's my green and black. And then there's my green and black. So it's going to be going onto the inside of the black connector. I'm not going to pop it out yet. I'll show you when I do. So now my next wire to get out is going to be this one. I need to pop it out of this connector. Nope, I don't have this one freaking open yet. Come on, freaking pop loose. If you haven't figured it out by now, these connectors can be a real pain in the ass. All right, so that's loose. Now I can pop my red and blue wire out. So, same as all the other ones. Push the staple down in there to release the 2 clips. And then the wire should come straight out. Sometimes you have to push on the metal part of the wire connector with a screwdriver to hold it forward, because these wires aren't strong enough to have resistance on their own, and then push it in. And as long as that's freaking released, the wire should come out. I don't know why this one doesn't. There we go. Some reason it didn't want to pop out of there. So now we can back feed this one through the harness. And let's see where this one's going. So there's that. There's that. There's that. Alright, so I believe I found it. It's on the front of the white connector. Or on the outside of the white connector, I should say. Don't know what side's front, what's back. But alright, so now that wire is completely removed to the ECU connector. So there's my two wires that I had that I need to replace for the black connector and the brown connector. So now that I have those done, I believe all the wires in the black connector are in the correct location. I'm going to stop the video right now and check that real quick, just verify, and then I'll pick back up where I left off. Alright guys, so I'm going to remove the red connector completely from the harness, just so that I can work on just one connector at a time, because it's starting to get a little out of hand. So the way that you remove these wires from the ECU connector, if you look inside this little window, inside of here, you'll see a little tab sticking out. If you stick a razor blade, small screwdriver, anything on the side of that, and push that tab in, so that's the tab that I'm talking about right there. You can see it sticking out a little bit now. But if you just push that tab in, the wire slides right out. I got two more to come out of here. I'm sorry, 4 more to come out of here. Because I'm not going to cut the CAN bus lines. I want the CAN bus lines to be solid. That's the main thing that I do not want to splice, is the CAN bus, high and low. So, and that's these 2 orange wires right here. I do not want to splice those. I am going to remove those from the ECU wiring and replace them into the other ECU wiring, because I do not want them to be cut. Cause communication errors and all kinds of shit like that if you get radio interference in it or anything like that. So shit. Getting a little ahead of myself. You got to keep it pressed while you're pulling the wire out. There we go. So now both of those are out. Now I've got 2 more wires left. Take out this yellow and gray wire, or yellow and brown, whatever hell color you want to call it. And I've chipped the ends off my freaking razor blade, so I'm having a hard time getting it to pop these in. But I'm not about to go get another razor blade. I'll just make do. So, and then there's my final wire to be disconnected. Now the whole red connector is separated from the B6 harness, and I can merge this in with my existing wiring harness. So that's the next process we're going to start. Okay guys, so what I wound up doing is I needed another wire for this connector. So what I did is I pulled the wires out of this orange connector, because there's 2 wires that I'm not using that I've already replaced out of the ECU connectors. So I took one of these wires so that I would have the correct connector. Now the wire color is going to be wrong, but I'm going to switch it out for this green wire so that I can have it where there's no splice. I'll just put this wire right here in place of that green wire, so that, like I say, so I don't have any splices. So I'll try and get this set up so you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I still want y'all to be able to see what I'm saying. Now that I have my white with yellow, and this is the existing green with black, and what the problem is this connector is way too big for this connector, for the location that it needs to go in. So I'm just going to pop this one out. Well, I say I'm just going to pop it out. All right, so that one's removed. Now I'm going to take my white and yellow wire, make sure my tang's bent out, and I'm just going to pop it back into that same spot. If it doesn't pick up like that. And now that wire is seated in there, and my wiring for this connector is almost done. I've only got one more wire to do. I'm going to use the other wire that is in here to get it to clip into the connector, and then I'll have to splice and solder the wire together down inside the harness. But that at least limits my amount of splicing that I have to do. So now I have my entire red connector is done. These 3 wires are not used. I will tape them off, probably actually remove them from the clip, but I'm not 100% certain yet, because I may still look in the wiring diagrams and see what they control. I think 1 or 2 of those may actually be cruise control, so I don't want to ruin my cruise control yet, because cruise control will not work when I first put it together. I'm going to have to change some wiring, and I have to modify my cruise control switch so that it actually puts out the right kind of voltage and inputs and outputs to the ECU, because the cruise control stalk is different from the C5 versus the B6. So, but as you can see, this wire goes down inside the harness. I cannot remove it all the way up to the ECU, so I'm just going to stick it back on here and tie it up. I'll address that wire later. Right now I'm trying to focus on just the wires that I can replace without having to do any cutting or soldering or heat shrink or anything like that. Try and get all that out of the way first, and that way once I set up to do the heat shrink and the solder and all that, I only have to set up once. I don't have to worry about breaking it down and all that kind of stuff. So still got to finish disconnecting this red connector, but there's my CAN bus lines. You can see I replaced those with these CAN bus lines. So I'm going to work on getting the rest of these wires out of this connector and getting it set up to where I can get this connector completely off the wiring harness. And then we will start working on the white connector, which is probably the most involved one. But it should go pretty easy. These wires right here, generally all of them run up to the ECU. So what I typically do is just look at my wiring schematic for the Audi Zine forum that I included in this post, and figure out what wire is supposed to go where on the B6 harness, and then just remove those wires as I build this system, and just swap them out one at a time. So I've got 4 wires that are still connected on here. I'm going to look in my diagrams and see where they connect, and then I will I'll record again once I figure out where these go, what they do, and give you an update on that. Okay guys, so I've been able to narrow it down to where all I have left is this white connector. I have to bridge it into this harness right here. This is also my starter relay and main maxi fuse. Next thing I'm going to do is bridge the white connector into the main harness of this wiring harness, and see where that takes us. But I've got everything else done as far as bridging the wires in. Now there's a couple wires that are not hooked up. They're not going to be hooked up. Before I go cutting them out or taping the wiring harness up, I'm actually going to go reference my Bentley manuals. I have a Bentley manual for the C5 and I have a Bentley manual for the B6. So I'm going to reference the Bentley manuals, make sure those wires are of no consequence to me before I cut them. because it has been like 4 years since the last time I did one of these. I'm doing a lot of this stuff from memory, but after 4 years, you kind of lose some of it. So, yeah, like I say, I'm going to reference the Bentley manual, check and make sure that I don't need any of those wires that are no longer hooked up to anything. If they're nuisance wires, then I'll just get rid of them. If they actually control a function, I'll figure out how to get them communicating the way that they need to communicate. Like I say, last time I had this car done, everything worked except for the air conditioning, and I think that all that was that I didn't have the proper wiring to turn the compressor on. I should have all that squared away on this one. So, but yeah, now I'm going to work on putting the white connector bridged into this wiring harness, and then once I get done with that, I'll give an update unless there's something goofy while I'm doing it. Okay guys, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to remove this section, which is just one small portion of the white connector from the C5 connector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the trigger wire and the starter wire and place them into this one, because this is what actually clips into the ECU box in the B6. So I'm going to reuse this mount instead of this mount, because they're a little bit different. This one will actually clip into the B6 the correct way. But you can see I've already got the starter wire and the trigger wire removed from here. So now I need to remove the trigger wire and the starter wire from here. So in order to remove the trigger wire, the smaller wire, I don't know if it's a trigger wire or if it's the ground. I think it's the trigger wire. I have to look at my diagrams to be sure. But if you just stick a blade in here and pry out while you're pushing down, it'll get that pin to come off of there, and then the wire will just slide right out. So, and then to get it through the connector, you got a little tab sticking out. You just stick your utensil down through here or through here and push down on it, because this is spring loaded. So if you just push down on that, it will fit through the connector. There's no need to try and cut it or anything like that. So now that we have that disconnected, now we're going to hook it up on this one. And you can tell where it goes because it's going to go in the same style fitting as the one that it came out of. So you'll be able to tell that the connector's different on the four 90-degree locations. So this wire is going to actually go into this location. And you just push it in and it's locked in. So now we're going to do the starter wire, which this one is going to be the same way. You use a staple or any utensil that you can find that you can do a U-shape with to press in on the pins on both sides. So you just push in on both sides, wire pops right out. All right. Once you get that wire out, then you can figure out where this blue wire goes up to the ECU, and we'll be able to replace it with the blue wire that's on this connector as well. So now that I've got that wire out, I can hook this up to the starter connection, which goes right here. Once they're both locked in, just clip the purple clip back down, and then you can pop it back into the original location on the distribution block for the power. And there we go. Now we can pop our relay in there. If I get it the right way. Yeah, this way. All right, guys. So I've had quite a few times that I've misspoken or gone the wrong direction with this wiring, because like I say, it's been 4 years since I did this. Also, don't want anybody to think that this is a freaking tutorial or anything like this. This is strictly for my records. If it helps you, great, but this is not intended to be an instruction video of any kind or any form or fashion. This is just what I did for my vehicle. Now, at the last part of the video, I had said that I was not going to use any of the relays at the top. Well, that has changed. I'm using all of them. The relay that I was originally wiring up, I thought was a starter relay because I wasn't looking at the freaking Bentley manuals, and it's my own fault. But that is not the starter relay. That's the secondary air pump, and this car doesn't need it with an M-box code on the ECU. So, but I did have to add the starter relay. The A6 or the A4 that I have actually came with the hot weather package, so it had an after run coolant pump on it. So I'm going to use that relay to run the after run coolant pump on the 2.7. Kind of works out pretty nice, actually. I'm going to leave all the circuitry for the secondary air injection. I'm just going to pull the wire out of the ECM, and I'm going to get rid of the I mean, it won't even be looking for it, so it doesn't matter. I mean, I could still leave it plugged into the ECM, but I'm not going to. I'm going to remove the wire going from the ECM into the relay, so the relay will never activate. There's going to be powers going to the fuses and stuff and to the relay, but the relay's never going to cycle on, and there's never going to be any power going to the secondary air injection pump. And I'll leave it in there that way. If for some reason this thing won't pass emissions without the secondary air injection, I'll throw it back on there just to pass emissions. But yeah, I've been spending a lot, probably the last like 4 or 5 hours looking through my Bentley wiring diagrams, and just so you have a sense of what I'm looking at, this is it. They're not very easy to follow. I've been doing wiring for a little over 20 years, and these are some of the hardest diagrams that I have to follow, just because they're not laid out well. You can follow them, but you got to jump all over the stupid place to find where one wire goes. I really don't like how they do automotive drawings, but that's besides the point. Industrial machine drawings are way easier to follow. But anyway, so I've got everything done as far as wiring without doing any soldering. I've got all my pins rearranged. I did screw up earlier in the video, and that's why I'm making this part of the video. I misspoke quite a few times earlier, but I want to include that in this video so that you understand the thought process that I was going through. This is very thought-intensive work. It's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's easy once you understand what you're doing, but you can get lost very freaking quick. And I've been doing this stuff for, like I say, over 20 years, and me trying to just breeze through it and do this video, and I think that's what it is. This is the first time I've ever documented it with a video, and I'm getting distracted with trying to do the camera and do what I'm doing. It's a learning curve. It'll be all right. I'll stumble my way through it. But I had several wires on the black connector in the wrong positions, several wires in the brown connector in the wrong positions. So I went back through, reorganized them where they needed to be, pinned them out with my ohm meter just to make sure that they were going to the correct locations, because I had already removed them from their original locations. I've got everything run except for, like I say, what I've got to solder, which is going to be my reverse light wires, because I have to add reverse light wires to this harness because this is an automatic harness and it's a manual transmission car. I did have to add the clutch vent valve wire from the white connector into the ECM. That way it drops RPMs when you push the clutch pedal down, and it'll disengage cruise control when I get cruise control working. Other things, what else did I do? Oh, I'm doing the ECM power relay for turning the injectors on and turning the ECM on. So I am, like I say, I am going to wind up using all the relay sockets on this board. I didn't think I was going to, but I want to keep it as looking as stock as possible. So that's what I'm going to do. I had to put the starter relay back in there, but having the ability to use the original coolant after run coolant pump relay, and then use the ECM power kill relay actually turned out pretty nice. But I'm going to finish figuring out these last couple wires. I've got like 6 or 7 more wires to figure out, but I wanted to do this update while I was thinking about it, because like I say, I made several mistakes, but I want to keep it in the video so that you can see what I had to go through to do this. It's not super easy. It's not straightforward. I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively easy, but it's still, it's pretty thought involved. And you will make mistakes, so just triple check, quadruple check before you cut anything. I still have not cut any wires, and that's the reason why I haven't cut any wires, is because I want to make sure that everything is correct before I go cutting and soldering. Because once you cut, you can't go back. All you can do is start splicing stuff together, and I don't want to do that. I've been saying that this whole time. I want this to be as clean as possible. So I'm gonna go in, finish figuring out these last couple wires, and then I'll pick back up and video what I'm going to do next, and then I'll show you where I clean it up and tape all the stuff together, get it to actually run inside the plenum box, and lay all my wires out so that I can tell how it's going to sit, and then I'll tape it up so that I'm not putting anything in a bind or anything along those lines. I'm also going to reinstall the original grommet that goes around the wiring. I did have to cut it open to get it off the wiring, but I'm going to Gorilla Glue it back together or super glue it back together, whatever, and then I'm going to wrap it with some electrical tape to keep it sealed. It's what I did last time. It doesn't look freaking perfect, but it's the best I can do. And I screwed up on this one and I cut the top instead of the bottom. Last time I cut the bottom and you couldn't really tell. This one I cut right down the freaking top because I had it upside down. So I have to tape the whole freaking thing. So it's not going to be ideal. Maybe I'll go steal one out of a junkyard somewhere, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. I'll eventually get a correct one on there. But that's where I'm going to leave it for right now. When I jump back in, I'll be back on putting the harness back together. All right, guys. So getting ready to start wiring or doing the soldering for the wiring. Start cutting wires in and bridging them in where they belong. Couple things that I'm using. I got little heat shrink kit that I bought at Harbor Freight, and then my butane soldering iron and some solder. But I've finally finished figuring out where all the wires, all the leftover wires belong, and there are quite a few that I do not need. I'm not going to do anything with them. But the white connector, the 4 wires that are left over in the original white connector from the C5, these are the 4 wires for the cruise control. So what I'm probably going to wind up doing is pulling the other half of this out of the C5 and bridging into the back side of that connector so that I have a quick disconnect for if I ever need to service the engine or service the turbos or anything to make it easier to pull the engine out. I'll just have a quick disconnect there so I can separate it and pull the motor. And it'll still be an OEM connector. So I got a few wires that I've got to solder together. The 2 biggest hurdles as far as soldering go on this harness, for me at least, because I hate soldering big wires, is the starter wire that I have to bridge in. So you can see this is a starter relay for the original B6. It may be in the wrong location compared to where it was originally, but that's what this is the starter relay. So what I need to do is I need to take this side, which is the one that jumps the power to the coil of the relay. That side has to go to the incoming power, which is coming from the harness going into the body. And then this one needs to hook up to the other half of the wire that's going back out to the starter. So on this harness, I have this, on this brown connector, I have this red and black wire right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right here, and I'm going to hook the power wire that feeds the coil and is the main power supply for the starter going into this side of the connector. I'm going to have this one going into this side of the wire. You'll see when I get to that point. The other things that I'm going to do is like I said earlier in the video, or not in this video, but in a previous video, this wire has actually got the wrong size connector on it, so I'm going to cut I did say it in this video. I'm going to cut this wire right here and bridge in the right size connector for this body pin, and I've got a couple other ones. This one has to have a different size pin on it, and I believe that's it, because this is the wire that's actually I'm gonna bridge these two wires together. And then I need this wire for my I think it's for this connector. I have to look at my wiring diagrams, but it's for the other side of my reverse light switch. So my reverse light switch comes off the red connector. It's this blue and red wire, and that's one of the wires that goes into it. And then this black and blue wire, or gray and blue, it's dingy, so I can't really tell the original color. Yeah, blue and black is going to go into I think it's either the brown connector or the black connector. I can't remember. Like I say, I got to look at the diagrams, but that's my reverse lights. This is the trigger wire for the air conditioning condenser, and it's the light blue and brown off of the red connector. This pink wire is not going to be used. It's a power wire for, I don't remember what, but it's not a piece of equipment that's on the B6, so it doesn't matter. So that wire is actually going to get removed from that connector. These wires I still have to run. So what I'm going to do is I have two wires in the black connector. One of them's for the tachometer and one of them's for the speedometer. I don't need either one of them because it communicates a different way in the B6. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull the pin out of here and clip that wire off and cap the end of it so it can't touch against anything. And then I'm going to run this crash signal wire into there, because I have to bridge into the cruise control module or the airbag module to provide a crash signal sensor to the ECU. So that's what this purple wire does, is provides that signal from the ABS unit, or not the ABS, but the SRS unit. And it has to have that signal or it won't let it run. This wire right here, I want to say, is the power wire for the after-run coolant pump, but I'm not 100% certain. I think that's what it is. I have to recheck that. But no, this is for the after-run coolant pump. That's why I've got this wire tied over here. So one of them goes to the sensor, one of them goes to the after-run coolant pump. I don't remember what that one runs to. I got to recheck that. But yeah, I'm going to bridge this red and blue wire off of the original B6 hot weather relay for the after-run coolant pump on the 3.0. And I'll be able to run the original equipment after-run pump on the 2.7 with that same relay. Yeah. So we're gonna get into it and get some of this stuff soldered together and go from there. Alright guys, I don't know what happened to my video. It just stopped while it was time-lapsing. But anyway, I've got the red and black wire spliced in. So, like I say, what I did was I took the main power wire that's coming from the car. You can tell it's coming from the car because you've got one that's looped over, and that's supplying power to the relay, and it's supplying power to the starter. So that's the wire. If you follow it up, sorry about my crappy camera stuff, but if you follow it up, that's the one that goes into the car. And then the other one is the actual trigger wire off of the relay, which is this one right here, and it runs up to the starter. So, or not the trigger wire, but it's the wire that gets turned on when the relay is fired. So got that in. I still got to get this other pin right here in. I soldered it back together because when I went to pull it apart, the pin popped off. But for some reason it doesn't want to go down in there. So I'm going to pop the relay panel out and see if maybe it's because my solder's too thick or something like that. But I mean, I think I did a pretty decent job on that. It doesn't look like it's built up too much, so it should fit. I'll make it fit. But just wanted to give that update, because like I say, my camera stopped recording while I was doing the time lapse on this. So I mentioned that I wanted to show this to everyone. So there you go. Okay guys, I want to give you a quick rundown of what I'm going to do with the, in respects to the crash signal that has to go to the ABS controller or the cruise control module. This wire right here, pin 2 on the black connector for the C5. This is a tachometer input, and the B6 does not require it for the tachometer in the instrument cluster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire, because it runs to the ECU, so I mean it runs into this connector to the ECM. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pin and move it to where this purple and black, or purple and blue wire, whatever it is, yeah, purple and blue wire for the crash signal, and I'm just going to remove the purple and blue wire. I will have the green and blue wire in its place. Then when I go to hook up into the car, I'll put a wire on the receiving side of this and bridge it into the CCM or the airbag control module, depending on where I can get to the signal at. But that will eliminate this connector completely, because this connector, the other red and yellow wire, is for vacuum brake booster, but it's only used on automatics, and because this is a 6-speed manual, I can remove this. So I'm gonna get rid of this entire connector. Like I say, replace this purple wire with the green and blue from the black connector, so this one, and repurpose it for the purposes of a crash signal to go into the car. So just wanted to give you that update. Alright guys, so I've got all the splices done, everything soldered, fitted together. The only thing that I need to do now is test fit it into the vehicle so that I can see how the wires are going to route, and that way I can clean the harness up and make it look really like it was original. So I'm going to take it out to the car, test fit it, show y'all how I'm doing this, and then once I get it test fit, I'll show you how I'm going to go about bundling it up, taping it up, and getting it looking presentable again. So I'm going to try and do this without knocking my camera down, but I've got it in here kind of precariously, so a very good chance it might fall. But now I'm going to try and fit the wiring harness into the car with the ECU, the distribution block, and all that stuff, so that I can make sure that everything is nice and tidy. freaking problem. Okay, that should be plenty to get me where I need to go. So I'm going to start by hooking up my miscellaneous connectors down here. I got to make sure that I got them facing the correct way. Yes. Alright, black one's in. Brown one's in. Now this is the connector that I'm going to keep for the cruise control. I'm going to actually add a spot next to the other white connector in here, so that's just going to sit down in there. The orange connector I'm not going to use right now, but I am going to still leave enough play for it to reach down in there. If should I decide that I need to hook it up to anything, it'll still reach into one of these spare slots. The only other one that I have left to hook up is the red and the white. So where's my red one? Here's my red one. So I just need to make sure I'm not getting caught on anything on it. I don't know what direction this one goes on, so I gotta try it one way, and if it doesn't go that way, I gotta flip it around. It doesn't feel like it's going that way. Let's see if it goes that way. No, it felt better the other way. Alright, so I got the red connector in there. I don't know what the hell was wrong, but it plugged right in after I was able to look down in there with a flashlight and check the direction, which I was putting it in the right direction. I don't know why it wouldn't go. But anyway, so then this needs to be able to clip in over on the other side. So I think I need to take it up underneath. So I'm gonna wrap this underneath here. Just to try and get it on the other side. Now let's see how that does. So then this should be able to just clip in its original location. So there we go, that's clipped back into its original location. Now I can pull these wires over here and hook them up. Make it the cleanest way possible. So that's in there. And then that just needs to be tightened down, but I don't need to worry about that because it's already clean enough. Now the ECU, mounts underneath all this crap. Or maybe not, I can't remember. That's why I always come out and test fit it. I think this clips into it first. Yeah, this clips in to hold the wires down, I think. And then that goes back over top like that. I want to say that's correct. I could be wrong. It looks correct. Or did it go that way? I can't freaking remember what direction it went in there. I want to say it was in there like that though. I can't freaking remember, damn it. Because if that's how it was in there, I just need to tape all this stuff up and then get that to sit in there. And that's for my air conditioning condenser to turn on, so I still need to leave that out to right there. And then I'll bridge a wire in from right here out to the AC compressor. All right. Okay, so I was correct. That's how it pops in there. So it sits in like that, and then that clip will sit down on top of it and hold the ECU in. So now that I know how it's going to sit, I'm going to disconnect the ECU pins. Set this off to the side. And we're going to pop this back out. If I can, I shouldn't have probably popped it back in there. I gotta remember how this stupid thing pops in here. I should have looked at it before I popped it in, because now I don't friggin' remember. Can't remember how I got these out the last time. There we go, there's one of them. There's the other one. Jeez. Felt kind of stupid there for a minute. Alright, so now that I've got that disconnected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and bundle up these wires, make it as clean as I can. So this one can stay separate because it's got its factory fabric cloth on it. So I can even run it behind there and keep it kind of tucked nice and neat out of the way. And then I can bundle all the rest of this stuff together. So all I'm trying to do at this point is get all the wires to where they're in one centralized location, to where I can bundle up all this stuff over here. So what I want to do is get my electrical tape, which I freaking left up on the porch, but I'm going to get my electrical tape and start taping here and get these all organized, making sure that I leave enough room for my white, my extra white connector and my extra orange connector to still plug into the auxiliary holes that are in here. So what I'm actually doing is feeding them down into the auxiliary holes so that I know they have enough room to be pulled and plugged in. So now I can tape all of these connectors into one bundle, and it's going to make it look a whole lot cleaner. So I'm just going to start out with a little bit just to get it started and to capture all the wires. And then after I get everything kind of set how I want it, and I do just little wraps to keep everything in place, then I'll do, I'll pull the whole wiring harness back out, and we'll actually wrap the entire harness. So these two are good to be taped together. Well, if I don't screw up my electrical tape. So those two are good to be together like that. This wire needs to be taped up here, and so do these two. So these are my reverse light wires. This is for my air conditioning condenser. So I'm just going to stick them right up here, and this is where the grommet that I cut is going to get put back together and put back onto the wiring harness. So that'll hold those where I need them until I can get the harness out. The rest of this stuff, I think I still have, I want to say I still had one wire that I didn't, yeah, I still have one wire that I got to hook up. I should have done that shit before I brought it over here. Whatever. I can still bundle everything else up. I'll actually tape these down here because I don't 100% know what I'm going to do with them yet. They're for the after run coolant pump. I was going to run it with the factory B6 relay, but now I'm not 100% certain that's how I want to run it, so I don't want to leave it stuck in the harness. So if I leave it at least right here to the front of the firewall, I can still tap into it and wire it however I need to. So, all right, that'll work. So then everything else in here is complete. That's the only wires that were still questionable. So now what I can do is I can consolidate a lot of this stuff. Get it down there, and all I want to do is wrap this corner right here so that I know how much room I have to work with once I get the harness out of the car. So now I've got it that way. Now I need to go this way. Okay, now that I have that corner established, now I want to establish how my wires are going to be up here. So I was just running this back behind here to try and clean that up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to quite possibly, yeah, I'm gonna turn this into two separate bundles. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this like that, and I'm gonna wrap that separately. So that way it'll still be easy to manipulate while I'm putting it in the car. I'll still have plenty of room for my grommet to fit into here, because the grommet sits in right here. I mean, I know it's not going to affect it back here, but I'd always like to give myself a little bit of extra room if I ever need to service anything. So if I separate it right here and bundle it into two individual bundles, it'll probably serve me better in the future. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now I'm gonna just break this into two sections. All right, there's one section. Now I can fold that up out of the way, allow me to get to the lower section. Just try and tuck all my wires up into the same bundle. So that does that junction. Now all I basically need to do is just clean up this a little bit. I'm not going to be able to get the whole roll of tape down into there, so I'm just going to have to pull a section off and wrap it by hand. This is why taking the harness out after the fact allows me to clean it up. Even if this tape is messed up when I take the harness out, it gives me an opportunity to pull this tape off and replace it if necessary, or just tape over it and give it an extra layer if it doesn't look absolutely horrendous. But that should be fair enough to get it out of the car to where I can tape everything up. So now I'm going to remove it from the car, finish taping it up, bring it back over here, fit it again, make sure everything fits good. And as long as everything fits good, I'm going to leave these wires in question unhooked up until I figure out what I'm going to do with the after run coolant pump. This one I'm going to leave disconnected until I fit the harness onto the engine. And once I fit the harness onto the engine, then I'll run this to the AC compressor. I've got the compressor off the C5 that is not got any refrigerant or anything in it. It'll at least get me in the general area. It may not be the exact location, but I'll leave an extra like inch or two, and that way I can plug it into the B6 AC compressor. And then the reverse lights, once I get it on the wire, once I get it on the engine and get the transmission mounted to the engine, I'll shorten up or tie up whatever I don't need for this wire and have it run down to the reverse light switch on the transmission. But we'll stop it there. I'll pick back up after everything's all cleaned up and show you how the final product looks. Okay guys, so here's the finished product. Everything from the firewall forward. So there's the original grommet holding it in. When I put the weather stripping across here, it'll blend all that in. Got it back into its original location here. These are the wires for the after run coolant pump. I haven't decided how I'm going to run them, but those are the only 3 wires left. And that one's a power wire. This one's a power wire. This one's a power wire for the, or I'm sorry, this one is the power wire for the pump. This is a power wire from the relay from the B6 originally, and then this is the signal wire that's supposed to be switched coming from the fan control module on the C5. But I don't know how I'm going to run it yet. But everything else is in here. That's how everything's going to sit. Tuck those wires down a little bit, but that's all nice and neat. So then when you get out here into the regular wiring harness, that's the only piece that you can see where it's been messed with is right there. Everything else is looks just like normal in it. If I get a piece of fabric to put over this to cover it up, I will. But the good thing about it is it has a little fitting on the bottom of it originally, and that's where I'm running my AC wires and my reverse light wires, so that I can run them over to the transmission and to the AC compressor. All right, I hope you found this video useful. I'm going to do an update as I continue to build the car. So as I get into the car and I do the wiring for the crash signal, as I do the 5K rev limit wiring, all the additional wiring that has to be done internally in the car, I'll do an update. But this is basically everything that needs to be done to get the engine running and to get it to where you can actually put the motor back in the car and be able to turn it over and crank it right up. So if you have any comments or questions, just leave them down in the comments. I'll try my best to answer any questions if anybody has any. But hope you enjoyed the video. I'll post an update when I get the engine and transmission back together and get them set back into the car. It may be a while. I'm working crazy hours right now, so this project has slowed down a little bit, but I'm going to keep trucking along, and I'll post updates as I have them. So thanks for watching.